Hi, part three. I'm gonna carry on. I keep putting them into loads of different ones because I don't want them to be too long. Um, Foot in the door technique. So the rest of the propaganda techniques. Wikipedia. Um, we're now on to foot in the door techniques. Um, excuse me a minute. Often used by recruiters and salesmen. For example, a member of the other binary gender walks up to the victim and pins a flower or gives a small gift to the victim. The victim says thanks, and now they have incurred a psychological debt to the perpetrator. The individual eventually asks for a larger favour, example a donation, or to buy something far more expensive. The unwritten social contract between the victim and the perpetrator causes the victim to feel obligated to reciprocate by agreeing to do the larger favour or buy the more expensive gift or to make a bigger donation. Yeah. Framing social sciences. Framing is the social construction of a social phenomenon, often by mass media sources, political or social movements, political leaders, or other actors and organisations. It is an inevitable process of selective influence over the individual's perception of the meanings attributed to words or phrases. So whatever the words and phrases, what you perceive them to be, which is more than likely wrong. A lot of these words and phrases, because you've got legalese and everything else as well. Like people think the word person just means a man or a woman, but it doesn't. It means something different. It means corporation, company. It means dead corporation, legal fiction. I'm not a person. Gaslighting. See a lot of this over the last 3 or 4 years. Seen a lot of all this stuff actually, but using persistent denial, misdirection, contradiction, and lying to sow seeds of doubt in a target individual or group, hoping to make them question their own memory, perception, sanity, and norms. Gish gallop. See it like this and all. Bombarding a political opponent with obnoxiously complex questions in rapid fire during a debate to make the opponent appear to not know what they are talking about. Get this a lot. You don't have to be a political opponent. You get this a lot on here on comment sections, and if anyone comes onto anyone's live or like that, they bombard you with obnoxiously complex questions and that in rapid fire. They might leave about 20 different questions on one thing, and you can't get to it all at once. You can't get to it quick enough. You know what I mean? So they go, oh, well, you don't know what you're on about. You don't know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? Because you've not answered all my questions and you're avoiding it and all this lot. No, because you're using the fucking gish gallop. And I pointing this shit out at me, you know? What sort of fucking gish galloping? Glittering I'm getting tired now. Glittering generalities. Generalities are emotionally appealing words that are applied to a product or idea but present no concrete argument or analysis. This technique has also been referred to as the P.T. Barnum effect. Example, the advertising campaign slogan, Ford has a better idea. Guilt by association or reductio ad Hitlerum. This technique is used to persuade a target audience to disapprove of an action or idea by suggesting the idea is popular with groups of hated or feared or held in contempt by the target audience. Thus, if a group that supports a certain policy is led to believe that undesirable, subversive, or contemptible people support the same policy, then the members of the group may decide to change their original position. This is a form of bad logic, where A is said to include X and B is said to include X, therefore A is B. Half-truth. A half-truth is a deceptive statement that includes some element of truth. It comes in several forms. The statement might be partly true, the statement might be totally true, but only part of the whole truth, or it may utilise some deceptive elements such as improper punctuation or double meaning, especially if the intent is to deceive, evade, blame, or misrepresent the truth. Information overload. Information overload can have the same effect as secrecy, and certainly in the short term and for democracies today. Not that there's no such thing as fucking democracy, it's bullshit. It might be considered more effective. When information overload occurs, it is likely that a reduction in decision quality will occur. You see this a lot in these thing where they use a straw. It's like the not straw man. The other one, what is it? Oh, it's gone. I'll remember and I'll come back to it in a minute. The glut of information generated by modern technology threatens to make its receivers passive. Overload prompts disengagement. Snow job. That's it. Information overload. It's a snow job tactic. Snow job fallacy / tactic. Not really a fallacy. It's a slow job tactic. Some people call it a fallacy, but some people say it's just a tactic. But it's information overload. Snow job tactic. Where the information overload can have the same effect as secrecy. And certainly in the short term and for democracies today, it might be considered more effective. When information overload occurs, it is likely that a reduction in decision quality will occur. The glut of information generated by modern technology or by these people using the snow job fallacy / tactic, it makes the receivers more passive and it overloads them, so they disengage. They don't want to know because it overloads them with too much information. So it looks too hard for them to figure out and stuff. Oh, there's too much there to look at. It's going to take me a long time to sort that. I ain't got time for that. So they disengage. Yeah, it's another propaganda tactic. Intentional vagueness. Generalities are deliberately vague so that the audience may supply its own interpretations. The intention is to move the audience by use of undefined phrases without analysing their validity or attempting to determine their reasonableness or application. The intent is to cause people to draw their own interpretations rather than simply being presented with an explicit idea. In trying to figure out the propaganda, the audience foregoes judgment of the ideas presented. Their validity, reasonableness, and application may still be considered. Labelling. A euphemism is used when the propagandist attempts to increase the perceived quality, credibility, or credence of a particular ideal. Dysphemism is used when the intent of the propagandist is to discredit, diminish the perceived quality, or hurt the perceived righteousness of the individual by creating a label, category, or faction of a population. So this is what they've done. They've turned everyone into flat earthers. Yeah, putting that label on, trying to label you, pigeonhole you into a group. Yeah, and setting up groups and stuff like that. Yeah, so they're trying to label you as a flat earther, putting you in the category of flat earther and science denier and all this sort of stuff, yeah? And putting you in a faction, yeah? Trying to put you on a shelf somewhere and go, oh, these are the flat earthers over here, you know what I mean? Anything else? It's much easier to make an example of these larger bodies because they can uplift or defame the individual without actually incurring legal defamation. Labelling can be thought of as a subset of guilt by association. Another logical fallacy. And it's no what they call it, what's the word I'm looking for? It's no coincidence that all this is happening. It's all propaganda being pushed constantly when it comes to this. It's got to make you think. If this was a load of fringe loons and that and stuff like that, and it weren't real, and the Earth wasn't actually a globe and everything else, why would they need to use all this propaganda? Yeah, all this censorship and propaganda and all these propaganda techniques that I'm mentioning here. Why would they need to use all this stuff if it wasn't true? If there wasn't something in it, yeah. And all the ridicule and everything else. Latitudes of acceptance. If an individual's message is outside the bounds of acceptance for an individual and group, most techniques will engender psychological reactance. Simply hearing the argument will make the message even less acceptable. So this is what they've done as well. People hear this message and that, and you give people information and that and everything else. Not just about the flat earth. about your legal fiction and legalese and stuff like that and everything else. Yeah. And people just simply hear it and they're like, no, it's less acceptable. It's not acceptable. You know what I mean? But they've not even fucking heard it out. They've not even researched it or anything. Yeah, they've not even looked into it. They've not even fucking learned anything to do with it. They just deny it. They just fucking like brush it off straight away, right? There are two techniques for increasing the bounds of acceptance. First one can take even more extreme position that will make more moderate positions seem more acceptable. This is similar to the door in the face technique. Alternatively, one can moderate one's own position to the edge of the latitude of acceptance, and then over time slowly move to the position that was previously held. The conquest or arrival of Hernan Cortes in Veracruz, 1951, National Palace, Mexico City. Diego Rivera's political murals depict a modern interpretation of the Black legend. Loaded language. I'm coming down with a cold or something, I think. Loaded language. Specific words and phrases with strong emotional implications and used to influence the audience. For example, using the word reforms rather than the more neutral word like changes. Yeah. Love bombing. Used to recruit members to a cult or ideology by having a group of individuals cut off an individual from their existing social support and replace it entirely with members of the group who deliberately bombard the individual with affection in an attempt to isolate the individual from their prior beliefs and value system. Lying and deception. Lying and deception can be the basis of many propaganda techniques, including ad hominem arguments, big lie, defamation, door in the face, half-truth, name-calling, or any other technique that is based on dishonesty or deception. For example, many politicians have been found to frequently stretch or break the truth. Managing the news. According to Adolf Hitler, the most brilliant propagandist technique will yield no success unless one fundamental principle is borne in mind constantly. It must confine itself to a few points and repeat them over and over. This idea is consistent with the principle of classical conditioning as well as the idea of staying on message. Anti-Muslim propaganda in Germany produced during the Ottoman Wars in Europe in the 16th century. So they say. I don't know how I went there. I can't verify that. Wasn't there. It's beyond my control to know exactly if that was true or not. I don't know. Milieu control. It's an attempt to control the social environment and ideas through the use of social pressure. That's what they're trying to do as well. Trying to use social pressure to put people off looking into their objective reality. Minimization. Minimization is the opposite of exaggeration. It's a type of deception involving denial coupled with rationalization in situations where complete denial is implausible. Name calling. The name calling fallacy. See, it's a type of ad hominem attack. Propagandists use the name-calling technique to incite fears and arouse prejudices in their hearers in the intent that the bad names will cause hearers to construct a negative opinion about a group or set of beliefs or ideas that the propagandist wants hearers to denounce. The method is intended to provoke conclusions about a matter, apart from impartial examinations of facts. Name-calling is thus a substitute for rational fact-based arguments against an idea or belief on its own merits. So we get a lot of this name-calling fallacy. Calling your names. It shows you it's a propaganda technique. It's used to put people off, basically. Put people off looking. Thinking, if I start looking into this and stuff like that and then I agree with it, then... And I find it to be the truth or whatever, or meant to be real or whatever, reality or whatever, then I'm going to be called names like that. And there's a lot of weak-minded people out there that have got that would affect them. It doesn't affect me because I don't give a shit what people think of me. I couldn't give two fucking hoots what people think of me. I don't care, to be honest. Yeah. This is the name calling is the lowest level of Graham's hierarchy of disagreement. So the bottom of the thing is name calling. Sounds something like "you're an idiot" or "flatard, you're a flatard" and stuff like that. You mean science denier and all this other shit. Yeah, all these other names that get called. Then it goes to ad hominem. Attacks the characteristics or authority of the writer or the speaker, whatever, without addressing the substance of the argument. Yeah, but that a few times. What qualifications have you got for that and all this like that? You mean what authority have you got? What qualifications? You know what I mean? Or just attacking your name calling and that. You know what I mean? Attacking you some other way. Responding to tone. Criticises the tone of the writing without addressing the substance of the argument. See that quite a lot as well. Contradiction. States the opposing case with little or no supporting evidence. Or proof. Because in this, I don't want evidence. Evidence is only there to suggest there could be other possibilities. Evidence is for court cases. This isn't a fucking court case. This is objective reality. Show me a practical demonstration or fuck off. Because you're lying. Because everything else in reality we can show a practical demonstration of and model it and scale it down. So show me. Otherwise it's not fucking reality, is it? Counter argument. Contradicts and then backs it up with reasoning and or supporting evidence. Refutation. Finds the mistake and explains why it's mistaken using quotes. Refuting the central point. Explicitly refutes the central point. That's at the top. We don't get none of that shit up there, do we? We get this shit down at the bottom here. Criticising the tone of the writing, attacks the characteristics or authority of the writer without addressing the substance of the argument, and sounds something like "you're an idiot." We get this bottom tier stuff. We don't get much of this top tier stuff. Non sequitur. So there's even a YouTube channel called Non Sequitur. So is that just a propaganda channel? Because we named it after one of the propaganda techniques. I don't know what I mean. I'm not saying it is because I don't know. I'm not claiming it is. I'm just thinking out loud. Typological fallacy in which a conclusion is made out of an argument that does not justify it. An invalid argument. All invalid arguments can be considered as special cases of non sequitur. Obfuscation, intentional vagueness and confusion. Generalities are deliberately vague so that the audience may supply its own interpretations. The intention is to move the audience by use of undefined phrases without analysing their validity or attempting to determine their reasonableness or application. The intent is to cause people to draw their own interpretations rather than simply being presented with an explicit idea. In trying to figure out the propaganda, the audience forgoes judgment of the ideas presented. Their validity, reasonableness and application may still be considered. Operant conditioning. Operant conditioning involves learning through imitation. For example, watching an appealing individual buy products or endorse positions teaches an individual to buy the product or endorse the position. Operant conditioning is the underlying principle behind the ad nauseum slogan and other repetition public relations campaigns. Oversimplification. Favourable generalities are used to provide simple answers to complex social, political, economical or military problems. Illustration by Reverend Branford Clark from Heroes of the Fiery Cross by Bishop Alma White, published by the Pillar of Fire Church 1928 in Zarephath, NJ. Is that New Jersey? Not sure. Everyone knows. You put it in the comments, let me know. I think NJ. Is it New Jersey? Zarephath or something. Pensy unique. Enforced reduction of discussion by use of overly simplistic phrases or arguments. Example, there is no alternative to war. Yeah, well, there is. Don't fucking do it. Murder's murder. If you got permission to fucking shoot and kill people or not, fucking murder is murder. Quotes out of context. selective editing of quotes that can change meanings, political documentaries designed to discredit an opponent or an opposing political viewpoint often use this technique. So you see this as well with some of these flat earth sort of like debunking channels. They're like taking people's what they're saying, taking it out of context and stuff and everything else, and then editing it and that to make it look like it's stupid and stuff like that. But then when people come over and they see that what's really being said, then they're like, well, hang on a minute, he's putting that you said this over there, making it look fucking stupid. You know what I mean? When they're not. Rationalisation. Individuals or groups may use favourable generalities to rationalise questionable facts, acts or beliefs. Vague, unpleasant phrases are often used to justify such actions or beliefs. Red herring. Well, we get this a hell of a lot. Bloody hell. Well, we get it all a lot, but I see this quite a bit. Presenting data or issues that, while compelling, are irrelevant to the argument at hand, and then claiming that it validates the argument. It's like, look at the sky, look at the moon, look at the sun, look at the stars, look at the sky, space, vacuums, all this shite. None of that proves the fucking shape of the earth. None of it. We're standing here on the fucking ground. The ground, what you stand upon, and the sea, the oceans, and that prove the shape of the earth. Not looking at the fucking sky. It proves fuck all. Just because stuff in the sky look fucking like round discs. Yeah? Because that's all you see them as. You don't see them in 3 dimensions. You can't travel all the way around them and see them as a ball or anything like these planets and that. You see them as a 2-dimensional disc in the sky. Right? Yeah? Proves fuck all. Even if you saw them as fucking round anyway and fucking like spheres in the sky, doesn't mean the fucking earth is. Yeah? It's like saying the fucking pool balls are spherical, so the table must be spherical. Bullshit. Don't be fucking stupid. In 1807, William Cobbett wrote how he used red herrings to lay a false trail while training hunting dogs. An apocryphal story that was probably the origin of the idiom. So the red herring fallacy. Red herring. Repetition. This is the repeating of a certain symbol or slogan so that the audience remembers it. This could be in the form of a jingle or an image placed on nearly everything in the picture/scene. This also includes using subliminal phrases, images, or other content in a piece of propaganda. There you go, repetition. An image placed on nearly everything and nearly everywhere. The globe. It's placed everywhere. Everywhere you look, you see a fucking globe. The image is placed everywhere. It's repetition. Yeah? So people remember it and they adopt it and everything else. Scapegoating. Assigning blame to an individual or group, thus alleviating feelings of guilt from responsible parties and or distracting attention from the need to fix the problem from which blame is being assigned. Slogans. A slogan is a brief, striking phrase that may include labelling and stereotyping. Although slogans may be enlisted to support reasoned ideas, in practice they tend to act only as emotional appeals. Opponents of the US's invasion and occupation of Iraq use the slogan "Blood for Oil" to suggest that the invasion and its human losses was done to access Iraq's oil riches. On the other hand, supporters who argue that the US should continue to fight in Iraq use the slogan "Cut and Run" to suggest withdrawal is cowardly or weak. Similarly, the names of the military campaigns such as Enduring Freedom or Just Cause can also be considered slogans devised to influence people. Or they could have just gone in because the main banking families didn't have the banks in them countries, now they have. Yeah, so now they control them, all the money in them countries now. And it's all under the same propaganda machine and everything else. Could be that as well. I don't know. I'm not part of it. I can't tell you. I don't know. It's out of my control. I don't know. I don't know. I wasn't there. I wasn't part of the decision-making process or anything else, so I don't know. It's nothing. It's something I can't verify or whatever else. So I don't know. A smear is an effort to damage or call into question someone's reputation by propounding negative propaganda. It can be applied to individuals or groups. Yeah, we get a lot of that smear campaign and all that. Stereotyping, name calling or labelling. This technique attempts to arouse prejudices in an audience by labelling the object of the propaganda campaign as something the target audience fears, hates, loathes, or finds undesirable. For instance, reporting on a foreign country or social group may focus on the stereotypical traits that the reader expects, even though they are far from being representative of the whole country or group. Such reporting often focuses on the anecdotal. In graphic propaganda, including war posters, this might include portraying enemies with stereotyped racial features. Excuse me. Straw man. A straw man argument is an informal fallacy based on misrepresentation of an opponent's position. To attack a straw man is to create the illusion of having refuted a proposition by substituting a superficially similar proposition, the straw man, and refuting it, without ever having actually refuted the original position. And all these maps and models that are right there, all straw man fallacy maps and models, have been put out there as propaganda. Yeah, so they can be attacked. Although I don't hold any of them. I don't adopt any of them stuff. So people still come here trying to attack them, and I'm like, well, what are you attacking a straw man for? You know what I mean? It's got fuck all to do with me. Have I claimed that? No, I fucking bloody well haven't. So fuck off with your straw man fallacy bullshit. Same as all the other bullshit I've read so far and all. They can fucking stick the propaganda where the fucking sun doesn't shine. Testimonials are quotations in or out of context, especially cited to support or reject a given policy, action, programme or personality. The reputation or the role, expert, respected public figure, etc. of the individual giving the statement is exploited. The testimonial places the official sanction of a respected individual or authority, perceived authority, I won't say authority, it's a perceived authority, on a propaganda message. This is done in an effort to cause the target audience to identify itself with the perceived authority, or to accept the perceived authority's opinions and beliefs as its own. I say perceived authority because no one's got authority over me, not the man. The Bulgarian Matrices, 1877, painting by the Russian painter Konstantin Makovsky, depicting the rape of Bulgarian women by Ottoman troops during the suppression of the April uprising a year earlier, served to mobilise public support for the Russo-Turkish War, 1877 to 1878, waged with the proclaimed aim of liberating the Bulgarians. No, it's fucking what they call it, you know what I mean? Like I said, I weren't there, I don't know. That could be propaganda itself. Third-party technique works on the principle that people are more willing to accept an argument from a seemingly independent source of information than from someone with a stake in the outcome. It is a marketing strategy commonly employed by public relations firms that involves placing a premeditated message in the mouth of the media. The third-party technique can take many forms, ranging from the hiring of journalists to report the organisation in a favourable light, to using scientists within the organisation to present their perhaps prejudicial findings to the public. Well, the third-party technique is not what YouTube's doing now, by putting the Wikipedia flat earth thing at the top of any video that says flat earth in the thing. That's the third-party technique. So another propaganda thing there when they're doing that. It's propaganda. Frequently, AstroTurf. No, I don't want to. What's happened there? No, just go away. Sorry. Frequently, AstroTurf groups or front groups are used to deliver the message. I think I've mentioned AstroTurf groups before, but we'll have another look later. Thought terminating cliche. Commonly used phrase, sometimes passing as folk wisdom, used to quell cognitive dissonance. Transfer, also known as association. This is a technique of projecting positive or negative qualities, praise or blame of a individual, entity, object or value onto another to make the second more acceptable or to discredit it. It evokes an emotional response which stimulates the target to identify with recognized perceived authorities, often highly visual. This technique often utilizes symbols, for example, the swastika used in Nazi Germany. It was originally a symbol for health and prosperity, superimposed over other visual images. So yeah, the swastika was originally a symbol for health and prosperity, but the Germans adopted it, and now it's seen as a bad thing. Unstated assumption. This technique is used when the propaganda concept would seem less credible if explicitly stated. The concept is instead repeatedly assumed or implied. Virtue words. These are words in the value system of the target audience that produce a positive image when attached to an individual or issue. Peace, hope, happiness, security, wise, leadership, freedom, the truth, etc. are virtue words. I could say unity is a virtue word. Being benevolent is a virtue word. Benevolence. Like I said, unity, movement, and stuff like that. I mean, many see religiosity as a virtue, making associations to this quality effectively beneficial. Yeah, and all the religious aspects of the flat earth and stuff like that. I mean, I think it's been brought in on purpose as like a virtue thing, so people get attracted to it and that. Do you know what I mean? You know what people are like. I find I'm not religious, never have been. Never been into organised religion, ever. Because to me, religion, to the masses it's true, to the wise it's false, to me it's false. To the rulers, so-called perceived rulers, it's a useful tool. Whataboutism. Whataboutism is a variant of the tu quo quo logical fallacy that attempts to discredit an opponent's position by charging them with hypocrisy without directly refuting or disproving their argument, which is particularly associated with Soviet and Russian propaganda. When criticisms were levelled at the Soviet Union, the Soviet response would be, what about, followed by an event in the Western world. Some propaganda techniques can be found in logic books. And that's it now, it's just some references you can go and look at. I'm going to leave a link to this now anyway. I think this one's been quite long. That's it. People need to have a good read of this and learn this, because it's all to do with, like I said, propaganda techniques. So you don't fall for any more propaganda. Alright, thanks for watching. Good night.